it's an amazing day. I get Chris Voss joining me on the line. Chris, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Great to be here.
Buddy, I'm so looking forward to having you at our Business Excellence Forum. And I have to start, though, with the story of how I got to meet you through your book. My buddy Brennan, who I don't think Brennan's ever recommended me a book in his entire life, not only recommended me your book, but bought a copy and shipped it directly to me. So pretty huge endorsement, I think, is that. And especially from a guy that's in real estate. I mean, Brennan's a big real estate guy in LA. They need to learn negotiation better than anyone. But I want to start with a very simple question. And to you, it's simple, but to most listening, negotiation, define it for us. Give us an understanding of what is negotiation.
Well, I would, synonyms, right? Let's think of some good synonyms. Navigation, collaboration. You know, those are probably influence in some ways, you know, but mostly navigation and collaboration.
Yeah. And in business today, it's probably not as tough as what you did. I mean, as the FBI's negotiator, that stuff's a little more stressful than our business negotiation. Tell me a bit about that, because I think that's like the stories you have in the book about that. There must be so many amazing negotiations you did.
Yeah, you know, it was the stakes. The stakes are different. I'll give you that. You know, how do players involved handle the stresses? You know, that's another thing entirely. Because, I mean, you know, I've heard of lots more name calling in private negotiations than we ever had in a hostage negotiation.
Yeah, I don't think in a hostage negotiation you're going to get people calling names too often. Now, let's go back to that, because you teach this stuff at universities all over the world. But when you first really understood how good you were at negotiation was at Harvard, where you learned I'll give it to you. How to say no is a real interesting point, because I think a lot of people really struggle with negotiation because of that emotion stuff. So take me through that process of how to say no.
Well, you know, how to say it and how to hear it. I mean, really, I mean, I think that's that word, mastering that word, is a critical transformation point in every negotiator, every business person's journey. You know, and I first got wise to it with as an idea was a book that I read called Start With No. I remember doing a double take when I saw the chapter or the book title, because I like Start With No. I mean, what do you mean start with no? That's insane. I got to look at this. And I ended up collaborating and learning a lot from the author, and I still partner up with his son. But then, so the Harvard thing was, you know, I show up there and my business card, you know, FBI hostage negotiator, generally gets you a second conversation. So, you know, I attended some of the executive education training, you know, that anybody could go to. All you got to do is pay to get in. And just so I could hand my business card to the head of their program, Bob Nukin, wrote a brilliant book called Beyond Winning. And, you know, Bob was immediately interested, and pretty soon I find myself in his office, and Bob wants kind of, you know, he wants to spar a little bit. He wants to have a negotiation contest. And so, and I know where this is going. And so naturally, you know, I try to be as innocuous as possible. You know, he said, so like, you know, if I'm a kidnapper, what kind of negotiation techniques are you going to use on me? And I said, you know, nothing special. Just ask you a couple open-ended questions. You know, that's all. Now, I see the most dangerous negotiation is the one you don't know you're in.
Got it.
So I've already got him dropping his guard. And he really kind of goes like, really? You're going to ask me open-ended questions? That's what you're going to do. No, I got a killer open-ended question that I know befuddles every aggressive negotiator. Just stops them dead in their tracks. It stops the charging rhino dead in its tracks. And it's just an open-ended question. So he's kind of like, so now he's like, he calls a couple people in to watch. You know, he gets Gabriella Blum in, he gets the secretary in, they put a tape recorder in a room. And he says, I got Voss, got your son. We're going to kill your son. $1 million. Yes or no, right now. $1 million by tomorrow morning, or we kill your son. And I just go, how am I supposed to do that? And he kind of blinks and he goes, no, we'll kill your son. We'll kill your son. If we don't. how do I even know if he's alive? How am I supposed to pay if I don't know he's alive? How am I supposed to do that? You know, it's just three different versions of an innocuous open-ended question, a how question, which is actually, you know, one of the ways to say no. This gets back to the point I was making earlier. Like, how do you say no? How do you hear it? How do you say it? How do you deal with it? And we use this. I mean, we literally use this with the most dangerous negotiators on the planet, and never ran into a problem. How do I know they're alive? How am I supposed to pay if I don't know they're alive? How am I supposed to do that? Different versions of how. It's passive. With a charging rhino, it's passive aggression taken to its highest level. You know, but it's just an open-ended question.
Yeah, it's like you're saying no, but you're not actually using the word no. It's right. Like, how am I supposed to do that? Now, I come back to, because the title of the book, and I got it here, this is my copy that Brennan sent me. I read it on vacation when I was in Mexico. And I started playing.
You might need it in Mexico.
Oh, yeah. I have 4 kids. So negotiation to me is more about kids than it is anything else. It's like half the time it's like, okay, these kids are trying to kill me. So you know, I use that statement, how am I supposed to do that with the kids? And you're right. They just look at you like, they just can't answer it. So it's brilliant. I want to go back to the title of the book, because never split the difference. When one of the stories in your book about buying the red truck,
the salsa red pearl. Let's get the color right. Salsa red pearl.
Salsa red pearl truck. Now, when you look at it, it's easy, and too often, and I know I catch myself doing this, and now that I'm much tougher, not because I need to be, but because it's just, why would I do that? Why would I give in? That never splitting the difference thing, for you as a hostage negotiator, there is no splitting the difference. How do business people get that attitude, though? How do you shift that attitude into business people?
Yeah, you know, first of all, because if you've got that attitude to begin with, breaking that habit is hard. I mean, it seems easy. It's actually a great shortcut to bad deals. Is what it is. And you know, if you don't know any better, you don't know that you could have made a much better deal with not that much more effort. I mean, but if you think your way around it, is splitting the difference. You know, there's an old saying: the person who wants to meet you in the middle is often a poor judge of distance.
I like that.
Yeah. So splitting the difference in many cases is a sucker move, one way or the other.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask for more than I want, so we can split the difference. And you're going to think you talk me down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I see that most often in the cutthroat negotiators. You know, their split the difference is what they're offering is never split the difference.
Yeah.
They're inflating their prices.
Yeah.
So but if you took the time, you'd figure that out. Or then the other split the difference is we'll take half of my idea and half of your idea. We'll throw it together.
Yeah. Glue those ideas together and see what happens.
Yeah. You know, and it's almost like they say a giraffe is a horse designed by committee. You know, I mean, that's splitting the difference. You needed a horse, you wound up with a giraffe.
Yeah. You know, when you look at it, because, you know, we're going to spend some time with you in San Diego learning a lot about this and the strategies and the techniques and the tactics behind this. But ultimately, you know, it's a lot of the attitude that you carry into a negotiation works. I guess, you know, for you as a hostage negotiator, removing the emotion, that's something I have to admire, because how do you remove emotion when it is life or death?
Well, just 2 things. I mean, first of all, you get comfortable with your process. My former boss used to say, we can't guarantee success. We can just guarantee the best chance of success. Which means, all right, so if I do the best I possibly can, we got our best shot.
Yeah.
We're not going to make every deal. It's not always going to work out. A recognition from the beginning that perfection is an impossible status. I mean, there's going to be meteors come in from outer space. I mean, there's going to be X factors that no one could ever account for.
Yeah.
So if your process is good and you're satisfied with your process and And the process is very flexible.
But that's one thing I've learned from you. The process of negotiation is exactly that. It's a process. It's not like it's almost like you've boiled it down to a science, I guess, is these are the steps type thing. And that's kind of, I guess, for a lot of people, because Chris, I mean, I'll be blunt. A lot of people never learn negotiation.
Right. Or what they do learn is really bad.
Yeah, I guess that's probably true. If you're not learning it from someone who's done it in life or death situations, you're probably not learning from the right person. Now, when you sit down and you start looking at, I mean, the subtitle on your book, "Negotiate as if your life depended on it." Again, I come back to attitude, Chris. I come back to that, and it's, I guess, one of the simplest things is I took away from the book is that, you know, you have a position of where you want to be, and it's generally somewhere between here and there. And I forget off the top of my head the exact term you use for that, but getting someone to that position and just not moving. How is it that, see, for someone like me, I negotiate better now because I have less fear of losing the deal. That fear of losing the deal is one of the killers to a lot of negotiators. Give me more an insight into that, because I think that there's a lot of great insight to that in the book.
Well, yeah, and then if you're afraid of losing a deal, you're taking yourself hostage. So, yeah, you know, on the other side's already half won. I mean, there are a lot of negotiators out there that all they learned was figure out if you're afraid to lose a deal, and then let you knock yourself out.
Wow, it's simple and yet profound. So okay. How do you find that? Okay, so now we got to think about that and learn that from you about how do we notice when someone's afraid to lose the deal? How do we actually learn that stuff? So there's so much, buddy, I'm excited to be learning when we get together in San Diego. That it's great. Tell me, if you were to be, if you were someone sitting on the other side of the fence and learning negotiation, maybe not for the first time, but for at least novice like myself as a negotiator, what are some of the things that we have to make sure we understand going into a negotiation before we even sit down with the person?
Well, the other side is going to have stuff that they're going to want that's actually going to be really good for you.
Right.
So, you know, let them get it out there. You know, let them, if they're driving a train and you end up where you want to go, who cares who's driving?
Right.
You know, and again, that's another weakness. Like if you're completely determined that you got to control, you got to drive the negotiation. I mean, the next level negotiators sense that in you also, and again, they'll exploit you over it. I mean, a control freak person, a person who's got to talk all the time. I mean, the master negotiators just shear those people constantly, and they don't even know because they were talking the whole time.
Yeah. It's one of those things, Chris, and the more I read through the book, the more I just sat there and thought, dang, made that mistake. Yep, done that one. Done that one too. It was like the book should have read, here's the 4,000 negotiation mistakes you've made already and how I'm going to teach you not to make them. I guess, you know, the level of preparation you discuss in the book prior to a negotiation is really important.
Well, two things. I mean, preparation on your skills, and understanding that get your skill level up and then get into the negotiation. There was a sales guy in Boston I ran across recently that has gotten real good at the skills, and he says now he actually prepares less for negotiations.
Wow.
He does prepare some, but he used to do lots and lots and lots of research on the counterparty, the other side, and I'm pointedly avoiding the use of the word adversary. You know, the adversary is a situation. The other person's a counterpart, not an adversary.
Yeah.
He does less research, and I said, why? He said, because they're going to tell me more about themselves than I could ever dig up. So I want to get into the conversation. You know, I used to look at LinkedIn profiles. I used to look at all their social media. I used to look at their company. I'd read their bio on their company page. You know, and to some degree, that's all, quote, marketing. So it's not all that accurate because they know it's marketing. And so I just look it over briefly, and they're going to tell me 10 times more than I could ever research.
Dang. I mean, it's kind of profound. Once you get the skill set up, then you don't need to do as much work in the pregame.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, it's like the guy who practices most of the sport is easiest to go into the game. He knows practice. Yeah. So tell me then, when you look at your students, because a lot of your students have gone on to do fund negotiations as well. Is there any particular story that stands out where you go, that was a fun one where one of my students learned that and then went and applied it?
Well, yeah, one of my favorites, and it's a favorite for a couple of reasons, because it was a bad situation, and it was one of my female students that did it. And women are killing it with this. I mean, the women are just killing it. And so she had a deal where there were probably about $50-60 million at stake, and they were getting ready to lose the deal because their subcontractor was failing to perform. So she had to go back in and renegotiate the relationship with the subcontractor. And by the time she got done, she had fixed the relationship and pulled an additional $2 million in profit out of the deal. And normally you got to pay to fix a relationship. You don't take more money away from the other side and have them like you more. So they had a deteriorating relationship, fixed it completely, and the other side also gave up an additional $2 million. That's not bad.
When you sit down and you start thinking about it, negotiation isn't just for new relationship. It is fixing old relationships or bringing past customers back or getting past customers buying more, all that sort of stuff. But, ultimately, for those of us who are pretty much novice investors, you take us to the nth degree. But there's a lot of guys and gals out there that are good negotiators, and they want to go to that nth degree as well. It's the level of minute changes that you discuss and you look at in the book, the minute changes. Give me more of an understanding of that, because I think that one is really important as well.
Yeah, and like you say, the changes aren't big. Tony Robbins has got a phrase. He talks about 2-millimeter shifts. You don't got to change that much. The biggest and hardest one of all is to stop asking closed-ended questions where you're trying to get a yes. That has to be the most hardwired bad habit I see out there. And the minute change, the 2-millimeter change, and that can be one or two things. You can just simply flip that question where you get what you want, and the answer is a no. Instead of saying, would you like, you could say, is this a bad idea? And the other thing, which actually yields an awful lot of additional information, is every closed-ended question can be turned into a label, which is, would you like this outcome? Is a closed-ended question we're trying to get a yes, and you could say, it seems like this outcome might work for you. Now that's a tiny little shift, but it gets a bigger answer. So those are a couple of the small little minute changes that people can make.
Yeah, well, that brings me to my last point, the stress on correct languaging, the use of correct languaging, and almost to the point where and in your mind, like you've got a lot of scripted, this is the question. It's like you prepped, it's almost like you must have a list, Chris, of like 100 questions that you ask, and then and it's like you reuse those 100 questions. I don't think people prep enough for and as you said, get their skills up high enough. But the point you make about the detail that you apply to the right questions and the right words and the exact right words, it's not just one word. It's like the tiniest little switch, the word, but being so meticulous with your wording is something. And I'm intrigued by that, because a lot of people don't practice their scripts and don't get that level of wording down. Can give everyone a little bit more of a thinking around that and why your languaging is so vital?
Well, every single word that we use has an emotional impact on the other person. And so if you don't know what the emotional impact is, you're shooting off a weapon. You don't know what target you're hitting.
Right.
Like if I use the word "you," it's an engaging word. It strikes your ear differently. And if I say you did this wrong, then the word "you" immediately grabs you in a bad way. But if I say, you seem concerned, the word you grabbed you, but again, in a completely different way. So the word, we refer to it as the I-U axis. When I use the word I, it hits your ear. It's a self-centering thing. You immediately begin to feel me shift the focus to myself. Based on a context that could be really good and appropriate, other contexts it could be really bad. So, but it has an emotional impact. You know, we will say, it sounds like you're interested, because you said the wording is very important, but it's not complicated.
Right.
The design of what I just said was actually designed to get you to contemplate an idea. If I say, it sounds like, immediately the cognitive part of your brain grabs that, and it asks your brain mechanism, does it sound like this? What does it sound like? What does that mean? And it runs it through the architecture of your brain, and then it hits specific spots in your brain, and then it comes back out, and you give me an answer. So for me to use this skill that we call a label, it seems like, it sounds like, it looks like, that's actually designed to get you to think about something without making you feel cornered. So you don't know that I've designed that statement to get you to think. And the intention is, if I'll say, look, it seems like this really bothers you. If I know that there's something that's bothering you, that's designed to hit a part of your brain that neuroscientists have told us will dial down your anxiety.
Right.
Hostage negotiators learned this back in the 1970s. We just didn't have the neuroscience to back it up. We had to learn by trial and error.
Yeah.
Now the neuroscience backs it up 100%.
Wow. Buddy, look, I'm so looking forward to hanging out with you. I know my friend Brendan is actually coming down to hang out with us as well, just to make sure he gets to learn from you as well. But I'm pretty certain everyone's going to be excited by this. You know, ultimately, Chris, great book. Can't wait to learn more. Thanks for your time today. I really appreciate you taking the time out to teach us more.
Yeah, my pleasure. I enjoyed the conversation. I'm looking forward to being in San Diego.